Welcome to the Autonomic Healing Podcast. I'm Tom Pells.
And I'm Ruth Lawrenson. We'll be unpacking what it looks like to activate your brain to holistically manage stress and trauma that bring healing to the mind, body, and spirit.
Being free to live authentically as humans.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started.
Tom, it's Christmas.
Yay!
Almost
Merry
now.
Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. We're just a few days out from Christmas as we're recording this, and excited. You know, we've been chatting about Christmas and traditions and what makes us light up at Christmas time. What makes you light up, Tom? What are some of your favorite things?
My favorite things are to spend time doing anything with people I love. That lights up my life. Last night got part of my Christmas gift from my son-in-law and daughter and my granddaughter, who is now 10 months old. And part of the gift was to go to the Denver Zoo and see the Denver Zoo lights. It was fabulous. So many. The animals that were there, and we saw a giraffe and elephants and all the beautiful lights. There was one tree out of the whole zoo. And on that one tree, they had 3 miles of lights.
Wow.
Which is like, what? Months for them to arrange this. And it was just fabulous. And to watch my granddaughter just take in all the lights and just take them in and just look at them. And and then to see my daughter and my son-in-law and what great parents they are, and just seeing another generation just enjoying and carrying on the Christmas tradition.
And I think Christmas can be incredibly commercial, but I think there are these things that don't have to be super commercial, but these traditions, I think that they bring the warmth to our hearts, don't they? So I know for me, it's things that I dip into. I'm a British person living in America. So it's the time of year that I crave all of the things British, because it's my traditions, right? So there's things that we do in England, and so I go to World Market, which is the place where you can buy British food, and I buy my mince pies and Christmas pudding, which I actually hate, but I just buy it because, and then there's these sweets, because we call them sweets, right, not candy, these sweets called Quality Street that I grew up with, and they're disgusting. But they're not the best, but I buy a tin of them because it is about remembering. It's about being part of family. It's about being part of those traditions and the warmth, I think, of hunkering down and being with those who you love. And then, of course, there is a lot around it too. Commercialism and presents. I mean, my kids, I can't get away from it completely because I have 2 kids that are bouncing off the walls, super excited that they're going to get a present. So there is that too. But I love that too. But so I think one of the things, Tom, that we want to talk about in this episode, we always do a Christmas special in our podcast, and we were just talking about last year. We did it all around the history of Christmas carols, and that was really cool. But in this conversation, we want to try and get to the essence of Christmas. And understand what is the gift here of this season. I know that, and I shared this with you earlier, that for some people they can feel like, I heard a quote recently which went something like this: those people who are struggling in the year, Christmas can be a time where they feel the weight of that even more. And then people who are super happy, they feel even happier at Christmas. I think that can be something that people feel.
Very much.
Which is totally understandable. People who are feeling lonely or isolated or struggling financially, they can feel like the weight is even more there at Christmas time. But I think there is a gift here that kind of surpasses that, where, you could be in darkness or you could be in light. You could be having a really hard year, or you could have the best year. And actually there's a gift of this season that isn't about commercialization. It is just in the essence of humanity that is on offer for everyone, I think. And that's what we want to talk about today. Does that make sense?
It does, because Christmas and New Year's following it have become like, this is the time. And it is so freighted and weighted with expectations of what it should be and traditionally perhaps was, but life changes and people's circumstances change, and what was isn't. And then, but it carries all those expectations, not just personal expectations, but community expectations. This is Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And think of so many Christmas carols and Christmas songs, and it's all about love and gathering and celebration and all the rest of that. And many people's lives don't reflect that. It's not a part of their life. And now artificially it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. It's an incredible amount of pressure that it puts.
Yes. And if our AHA podcast is about anything, it's about dealing with stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason for the quote that you shared a little while ago was that this can be incredibly stressful time of year, when the whole point of the celebration was to manage stress, not add to it. So I'm hoping that what our conversation can do for some folks is help them shift their paradigm to what is the essence of this? What makes Christmas such a celebration? And you asked what lights up my life, and it's literally sort of the central thing for me has always been a Christmas tree. The Christmas tree itself has been, if I did no other decoration, there would be a Christmas tree with lights on it.
Oh, yeah.
It would be.
Same.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of years ago, we did the Velveteen Rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And that was under the Christmas tree when I was a little child. And I still have the Velveteen Rabbit. And the Christmas tree and its lights and the presents under the tree. But even if there aren't presents under the tree, just for me, the tree and the lights, every morning when I wake, I turn my Christmas tree on. And every night when I go to bed, the last lights out are the Christmas tree. And so, but the Christmas tree really has its history, not just as the Christmas tree, but decorations of evergreen in the winter, even places that you might not even think, ancient Egypt. And I personally don't have associations of evergreens with Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
And Rome, okay, I can see Italy having pine trees and that sort of thing, sure. But ancient Egypt, yeah, it was a thing. And they would decorate them with metal strips to make them shiny. And of course, the big push came in the Nordic and Germanic areas with the Christmas tree. But it was lights. I had the thought the other day that thank goodness for modern technology and lights, because literally there was a period where they would put lit candles on evergreens for light. And it was a little clip thing that would go.
Not quite safety measures that.
Fires today. But the whole point is that evergreen and the light and what that brought together.
Yeah.
Gives us what we were going to talk about, the 3 L's of a Christmas and what Christmas can be. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like yesterday, because we have, weirdly enough, Tom, this is a fun fact about me. I'm like allergic to fresh Christmas trees. I found out this a couple of years ago, which
Oh
is
my
such.
goodness.
I love them. So anyway, so most of the time we just get a fake tree, right? But I kind of succumb to some fresh garland, which I don't know whether that I'm allergic to that or not, but it seems to be fine. But yesterday I popped down to the fresh tree, they have the Christmas tree markets.
Yep.
I got a bit of fresh garland that I put on my mantelpiece and put some lights on it.
To torment yourself.
What's that?
To torment yourself.
Torment myself. I love the smell of it.
Yeah.
It's downstairs in our basement, so I've kind of mainly don't get affected by it. But I was just thinking about that.
But you got to have it.
I've got to have it. It's so lovely. The smell. I love the smell of it. And then obviously regret it later on. But the Christmas tree is too much.
Yes.
So just a bit of fresh garland. But yeah, you're right. We're going to talk about, we have these 3 words that we want to talk about in this conversation, 3 L's. So why don't you tell us the first one that we think is really the essence of Christmas, that's for everyone?
Yeah. Light in darkness. One of the reasons that this occurs at the time of year that it does is because these are the shortest days of the year and the darkest times, just in terms of the amount of light that's available. It gets dark earlier, it stays dark later, the shortest days, and bringing light into that darkest of times. That's goes back throughout human history. We want light where there's darkness, and the Christmas celebration is all about lights. It's why they would risk putting candles on evergreens. Yeah. We got to have light and put that together with the evergreens.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to the evergreens with the 3rd L, but light. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's just physical light. It's light itself, and light in those dark places. Mm-hmm. And the darkness might not even simply be outside. There can be a darkness that's within us, and we crave light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's so many themes that from different traditions, from spiritual traditions, from cultural traditions. Mm-hmm. Like he's just already mentioned the evergreens, but then even like how people light up their homes. But even like when I think about spirituality and the story of Christ coming, it's the light has come into the darkness. That's the theme of, there is something there that talks about light. And so look at all of those stories, light is a central theme of, in the darkest, basically darkness cannot extinguish light. Mm-hmm. There's something about light that it can be the darkest darkness, but if a little bit of light comes in, it cannot be extinguished, which is an amazing thought. But you're right. I think it is that, I think for anyone who, every human has experiences of darkness. Maybe it's the season where, if you're listening, it might not be your season of darkness, and that's wonderful and great. But that as we travel as human beings, we will have our moments, right? I know that I know a handful of people right now in my own life that are going through their own things. There's sickness or something's happening, or but the point is, even in those dark times, Christmas reminds us that there is still light, that there's a light has come, and I think what that says to me is the worst thing is never the last thing. It's like, if it's hard, there's always hope. I think that's what light represents to me. Is actually, there is something, darkness can feel so overwhelming and all consuming. And then you have a tiny little candle and it distinguishes the darkness. I mean, how powerful is that?
Yeah.
So there's something really hopeful about light coming in the darkness.
And light can bring darkness to our perceptions. Enlightenment. Why do we talk about enlightenment? Except it's bringing light into the darkness of our perceptions. And we would really encourage the listeners to very intentionally engage in things that bring light into their life, especially at this time. You talked about an experience in our pre-conversation that you had with your kids and caroling, and there was a person who was listening to the caroling, and maybe share that, because it brought light into this individual's life.
Yeah, totally. It was really moving, actually, Tom. It was just a couple of weeks back. My daughter, she's only 11, but she was in this kind of musical theatre program, and they did that performance. It was actually really funny because it was a rendition of the Great British Bake Off, which obviously she was one of the Toffee twins, she was Tom and Toffee, and it's all pretty little. But anyway, we saw the play, and then the idea was the community went down to our old town in Fort Collins, which is gorgeous, by the way, and all lit up and
see?
Yeah, exactly. And then we went to the little Old Town Square and stood on the little podium there, and maybe there's like 20 of us or something, and we were singing Christmas carols, and the kids were just handing out candy to everyone, all these little mints, and obviously it's kind of warming singing Christmas carols. There's a few people watching because it's central in our old town. But there's this one guy that I saw, and he obviously, I don't know what his story was, but he looked like he, was weathered in life. And he was, my guess is that he might have been part of the homeless population here in Fort Collins, and he had a Christmas sweater on and big kind of coat, and probably in his 70s or something like that. And he was watching and singing along, he was singing along. You could see he was really attracted to what we were doing. And so I mentioned to my son, who was with us, and another little boy, I said, why don't you go and give him some of the candy? And they went up to him and gave him the candy. And they came back, and I saw him, and he was tearing up. It just moved him so much. And I was just like, and it moved, and then that in turn moved me, because I think there was something there, Tom, it was like a connection of humanity, because I don't know what his life was like, but I could almost, I know I've known pain and I could see it, and then there's also, I've known hope and I could see it. And so there was this little moment there, and I think light pierced the darkness there for a moment, and it touched him deeply. And I think that it was important. It was just a tiny little thing, but I saw something of light enter him in that moment.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that brings us to the second L, which is love.
Yes.
And this is about love, and that light, that he was lighter. It was enlightening to him to be a part of that whole celebration, and it touched him with love. And light and love are inseparable, I think.
Yeah.
Because love does enlighten us. And that light of love, I think, is so at the heart of what Christmas is. Because in those darkest times, sometimes, as your story shared and expressed, it was love that brought a light to this person's life.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. And light and love brings light to those dark places in our lives. And
I think
it makes them light.
I think with that story, I think he felt part of something. Like I think he felt connected. And, for my son to give him some candy, I think it was a glimpse of how humanity can be in community, where there is love and there's sharing and there's kindness. And I think he experienced that in that moment. And I think that, again, Tom, you know, I think that potentially, I think this is one of the pains of Christmas, potentially, when people feel like they aren't loved, you know.
Yes.
So I think it's when there's a broken family or there's no friends or whatever there is, but in someone's life. But I think what we're saying, the essence of Christmas, there is love to be found.
Yes,
and it
there is.
Can be from a stranger. It can be a look. It can be an act of kindness in a grocery store, or and it might not be everything that we've wanted. It might not be the big ideals of all the Christmas traditions and blah blah blah, but there still is love out there. And
Yes.
it's just, I think, are we going to be people who not only see it when it happens, but also give it, you know, to people in the moments that we can? And yeah, I think that that's, again, a message of hope, because it's like, it doesn't matter where you are. And it's not to belittle that. I think that, you know, I've certainly been in seasons. I remember in my early 20s, you know, I wasn't in a relationship and my family wasn't all together. And so I found these times really hard for Christmas. I remember just a lot of times waking, I mean, I'd eventually go to someone's house for Christmas dinner, but waking up and on my own, you know, for Christmas, it's harder. You know, it's not to say that those things are easy. For some people, they love it. but actually there is still love. There is still love to be found.
And to be willing to receive it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, the love is there and is available. It's just that the heart is not open to receive it. That's, I think, what resonates so much with humbug.
Yes.
It's Scrooge.
Yeah, it's such a good story.
And that's what resonates, is that love is there.
And there's you know, his nephew and the you know, story is like, there's so much there, but his heart is hardened to it in that story of Scrooge.
Yeah, one of A Christmas Carol, A Muppet Christmas Carol, is my hands down favorite Christmas movie. Second to A Wonderful Life, which is my second one. And then there's Elf. But see, all of those are about love. That's what resonates for us. I'd encourage our listeners, if you're not experiencing being loved, open your heart to it. It will come. It's there. It may be a child with a candy, but open your heart to love, and it will be there, because it is there. Love is always there, some way, some form. It may require allowing yourself to be loved, but do that. And again, intentionally, what can you do to not only bring light into this season, but love? And take those steps proactively. Invite it, because light and love are inextricable, which can bring us to our third one, the third L, which is life. Because if Christmas is a celebration of anything, it's life. When the world around us, the trees are bare, the crops are not growing, everything seems to be dying, but the seeds of life are all there, just waiting for that spring to come. And I think that's why the evergreen is such a symbol and is so significant, regardless of cultures, all over the place. The evergreen is so significant because that is, as I look out the window, I'm seeing a bare tree, but behind it, I'm seeing green evergreen. And they are evergreen. So the Christmas tree for me, light and love and life. And we celebrate in the Christian tradition the birth of Jesus. What's fascinating to me is that it gets at the life, but for hundreds of years in Christianity, Christmas is not celebrated. His Christ's birth was not celebrated for hundreds of years. It wasn't until the 400s that Christmas became a thing. And then, of course, for many people, Christmas is about some conflict and controversy. And of course, that was there too. Is it December 25th or January 6th? And eventually they came to some reconciliation, and they made January 6th Epiphany, and December 25th was the Nativity and the birth. The point is that it's a celebration of the birth of Christ, but for hundreds of years it wasn't. Why? Because the focus was about his death and resurrection, life from death. But it's the same thing. If you think about it, there was death and life has come into it. And that life is the light of the world, and it's all about love. And how can we very intentionally focus on making this a time of life and living? And if you follow our podcast, you know that this is the autonomic homeostasis activation podcast, the AHA podcast, and homeostasis is life. Thank you, Scott Turner, for that quote. Homeostasis is life. Homeostasis is the adjustments that are built into our neurobiology to change, to promote a stable, steady state. I think that that's what this is about. Homeostasis is life. The absence of homeostasis is dead. There's no change. But where there's change, there can be life, and life finds a way. Thank you for that wonderful quote from Jurassic Park. But my point is, this is about life. And in the season where everything is dead around us, seemingly, there is still life there. And it's just waiting. So what can we intentionally do to celebrate and to shine a light on the love that brings life? Because if we combine the light, love, and life, I think that's what Christmas is.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful time of year when that happens, a time to reflect, a time to, I think, in all of the busyness of life, we cannot do that. I'm reading this really good book at the moment, Tom, called Wintering, and it's all about this idea of like the winter season and but and even in nature, how animals hibernate, and the point of wintering is there is a hunkering down, there is a kind of it's just a different season, but it's for spring, it's for it's for something else. There's something to be had in the wintering time that you can't have in other seasons, but it prepares you for those other seasons. So I think that there's something in the Christmas season that's a little bit similar. It's like, if we can use the time in the Christmas season, because let's face it, when we're in January, we're all going to be back to busyness and ideas and work and all of the rest of it. But there's something in this time to be reflecting on light, love, life. Let it sink in. Let it marinate in that space, because then it will prepare us as we enter into the new year, I think, and infuse us with goodness while we're here. Season. So I love that conversation. Were you going to add anything to that?
I was just going to say, we can get distracted into all the commercialization and the gift giving and the plans and the activities and all the rest of that. Or those things can be about light and love and life and ways to express it, they aren't the point. They are a means to light and life, or light and love and life. And let them be means to that. And then they aren't the point. They aren't the focus of attention. I remember when the kids were little and there was invariably, there was a particular toy that everyone had to have. And I remember a foray into the shopping to find that gift. And of course you couldn't. And I would watch people fight over getting that particular gift, and then missed out on the light and the love and the life that it was all about. So we can cultivate and proactively pursue light and love and life, or get distracted into all these other things, which really ultimately are simply ways that we try to cultivate those things in the first place. So let it be about that. And then the other things find their place. And if that particular toy isn't there, okay, that one isn't there. Or if this particular activity that used to be there isn't there, there can be another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we hope that this has been a joyful episode for you as you're listening, and we're excited for the new year. We're going to be coming back with a brand new series, right? But for now, we just want to wish you a really Merry Christmas in the way you get those three things: light, love, and life. Right, Tom? Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas.
You've been listening to the Autonomic Healing Podcast.
Join us next time as we continue in our conversations with Tom. If you're interested in pursuing your own autonomic healing journey and want to find a practitioner, visit our website, innerworkings.org. See you at the next episode.